I'm VJ Hamilton and welcome to the Autoimmune RESET, the place for you to learn how to thrive with autoimmune disease and feel empowered to take steps to transform your health to feel better than ever. You can start making changes today to improve your health. So with every episode, my mission is to share with you simple ways to up-level your diet and lifestyle with key learnings from my own journey reversing autoimmune disease and inspirational stories from those who have reset their autoimmune symptoms and are now thriving in life. I suffered from autoimmune disease for over 25 years and now I live symptom-free, and I wish the same for you as well. So thank you for being here and sharing this time with me. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Autoimmune RESET podcast. I'm your host, VJ Hamilton, and today I'm joined by someone a little different. We have Lisa Johnson, who is a global personal brand strategist, a keynote speaker, Sunday Times bestselling author, and a mentor who has built an incredible business helping thousands of entrepreneurs and corporate clients around the world. But behind the scenes, Lisa has also lived with chronic illness, which we'll be talking about today. And we'll be talking about what happens when ambition, achievement, and health collide. But we'll also discuss moving away from that hustle culture, redefining what success really means, and creating more joy in our lives and how we can still have big dreams without sacrificing our well-being along the way. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. Where I normally start is to know a little bit more about your story. So if somebody is joining the podcast today and hasn't heard about you, what can you tell them about your business, your health, and anything else that's relevant for today?
I guess my health was always good up until a point. And I had asthma as a kid, but it was generally good. And then I started a business in 2017 because I got pregnant with twins and I was a single parent for a period of time. And that meant I got into a lot of debt. And so I was £35,000 in debt. And so while I had my 9-to-5 job as a PA, I decided to start a business. And first I started a wedding planning business, which was fun, but didn't make me very much money. And then I started a business helping other people to, move away from 9-to-5 and start their own thing. And that went really, really well, very quickly. People thought it was an overnight success. It obviously wasn't because I'd had a business before it, but it looked like it. And so very quickly in 6 years, I made 20 million. But if you look at that 6 years and you look at my health, there's a very obvious pattern. And I refused to accept that for a long time, that it was anything to do with how busy I was or the business or any of those things. But it's hard not to kind of see the pattern there.
Yeah, I think that's why having you on this podcast is going to be so helpful, because I think there's so many of us pushing through. We've got big ambitions, we're highly motivated, and we kind of ignore those initial symptoms that, to be honest, if we'd picked up on a bit earlier, we might have been able to be a bit more proactive. But it's only looking back. Yeah, you see that.
If I look back, so the first thing that happened was around 2020, just as COVID was hitting, is when my business was at its peak because I was helping people come online and that's what everybody wanted. We had this weird day where I made £1 million in an hour online.
Well, that's where I found you, because I was like, what do I do with my clinic? I need to do some things online now. And that's how I discovered you as well.
Right. So during that month was the first time that I started to feel ill. And I started to have what felt like a continuous UTI. Forever. No antibiotics. I'd always had 1 or 2 a year, but no antibiotics would get rid of it. Nothing would help. That was the start of 3 years of a 24/7 UTI symptom.
Which are so uncomfortable. It's actually something that I remember when I was first making changes for my own health, having a UTI. And I actually ended up going to A&E. And it might sound ridiculous, but I was in so much pain. So to be going through that, and I know yours was a different cause, but to be going through that and having that all the time must have been so hard to deal with.
There were points during year 3 where I didn't even want to be here anymore. You can't sleep because you need the loo 24/7. So you constantly need the toilet. You can't sleep when you need the toilet, even though there's nothing there to go. I had cystoscopies and so many different things. I spent 200,000 trying to see doctors in 3 different countries to get to the root of it. But everybody says it's a different thing. So, we had some people saying it's bladder pain syndrome or it's interstitial cystitis, which I know now are just like catch-alls for we have no idea what this is. And then eventually I went to a clinic in Harley Street where they said, well, it could be an embedded UTI. And so with embedded UTI, they give you antibiotics forever. And so I was on high-level antibiotics, which caused a whole host of other issues. And actually, none of those things solved it, even the high-dose antibiotics, for that long. And so for a time, it was really bad. And then at the same time, about a year later, I started getting breathing issues, which I'd never had. I've had asthma, but it's really under control. I just couldn't breathe in properly for like weeks and weeks at a time. But my oxygen level's fine. And so then I had to go and have and I was really lucky to be able to afford private care. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even been able to do any of these tests. But, I checked out my heart, my lungs, everything. And even with everything autoimmune stuff, everything I checked out, there was no clear diagnosis. There was, it could be any of these things, but we don't really know. But there's nothing you can do about any of them anyway. And so for a 5-year period, it was just horrendous. I had this constant things. And then I started looking into, because people were saying, well, it must be stress. I am somebody that's always busy and I had this business that people could see. And so people were saying, well, it must be stress. But I didn't feel stressed. I thrive in stressful situations. I'm a very ambitious person. So when there's a lot of challenges going on, that's when I'm at my best and my head is feeling great. I now can accept that just because my head is feeling great, my body might not be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hard thing to accept. I was exactly the same. People would ask me, are you stressed when I had chronic fatigue? And I would be like, I'm absolutely fine. And I look back and I think my baseline has always been really high. I'm sure it's the same for you.
Yeah, it's always been high. And that stress is when my body is comfortable and my mind is comfortable, but actually it was causing so many issues. And there's still been no diagnosis on any of these things, but I've found ways to manage them. So the bladder issue just got less and less and less the more I dealt with problems in the business and got rid of things in the business. And if I'm honest, I started to make less money and had to do less things and was less visible to trolls and that kind of thing. And that it got better and better. And I'm now at a point where it's very, very manageable. I only get it, every month or so I'll get a twinge for a day or two and then it goes away. And so it's manageable. And that might be because, I did so many things with supplements and probiotics and all sorts of nutritional stuff. The breathing I still have. So I can go 6 months and be fine. And then I've got it at the moment. So it will just come back for like 2 or 3 weeks. But I think what used to cause it to get worse is I was stressed that it would never go. Yeah. And now I can tell myself, it always goes eventually. So you're going to be okay. And that allows it not to carry on for too long because it's stress on top of stress then.
Yeah. And do you feel like you're happy to be living still with a few symptoms just because they are so much more under control now?
Yeah. I think with anything, if you know what you're dealing with, like there's no diagnosis. That's the thing that I really have issues with. I've gone further and further into my own research on things and speaking to my own medical practitioners and people that I wouldn't normally even listen to when it comes to health. And it's probably something to do with connective tissue disorder and the nervous system from what I can gather. But to go deeper into that would cost me another 200, 300,000 in America. And so it's whether in the end you just get to this point where you're like, okay, I know I'm going to have these symptoms every now and again. I'm starting to get used to the fact that every now and again, I won't be able to speak on a stage when I've got a speaking gig because I simply won't be able to breathe well enough to do it that day.
Yeah.
And have a baseline that you can cope with. Like there's been a lot of talk from my doctors about I probably have Ehlers-Danlos disease.
I am so obsessed with Ehlers-Danlos. I think it's just an evolving piece of research, and the way that they're diagnosing it is changing at the end of this year as well, which I think is going to be helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is one of those things that it is worth exploring. I'm actually reading Lena Dunham's book at the moment, and she had it, and I suspect people in my family have it. But it's just such an interesting area. But you're right. I mean, even with that, that they're changing the diagnosis. They still don't know that much about even Ehlers-Danlos, and it's been really hard to actually diagnose. They know certain genes are involved, but
yeah,
it's still really difficult. And I think even when I got diagnosed with post-viral chronic fatigue syndrome, it didn't feel like a real diagnosis almost because there was nothing they could do. So as you said, you just got a term, but it doesn't really mean much.
And I think that when you're young, you go through life thinking if you get ill, you go to a doctor, they tell you what it's like cancer, they tell you what it is. And then there's a treatment plan that you go on to get rid of it. And with all the things I've had, and very often with things like autoimmune, there's none of that. It's like, well, it could be some of these things. There's nothing you can do about it. Continue. Yeah. And I found that really hard because it kind of like skewed how I thought medical systems worked. I've had to really get used to the fact that actually you can live for years with things, forever with things. Like I've met many people now who have had interstitial cystitis or like breathing issues for their whole life from 20 to 70. No one's ever diagnosed it, but they've never died of it.
Yeah, with the NHS as well, they are looking to prevent people from dying. It should be like a life-saving service. They're not as great with these chronic illnesses because at the end of the day, people can still live a long life when you're living with them.
Yeah.
But, with all this going on, you still managed to build up an amazing business. I know you've made some changes, but how did you cope with that at the time when it was at its worst?
Well, at its worst at the beginning, I didn't cope with it. I found it really difficult to still have, there were times when I was doing launches in this business and I was on so much of the time, like on camera, really visible. And I would be like, hi, da, 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 and then put the camera off and be like crying in pain on the floor. Like my husband would walk in and see these two sides of me within 5 minutes because I had to carry on because I didn't want to let all these people down. There were thousands of people watching me at that time.
Yeah.
And relying on me. And so I didn't want to let them down, but it was really hard. Took getting really clear about, okay, what do you need to do in this business to make this even able to be sustainable? And that meant taking on a team so that anything that wasn't me could be done by somebody else so that I could just do the things that needed my face and nothing else.
But even doing that and creating a team, I know you've got your husband's support as well, but that is quite challenging. I mean, I used to set up teams when I worked in corporates, and that was a job in itself. How are you managing that? Because I'm sure there are people listening today who are going through this and, turning up to work, having a smile on your face. I know it was a little bit different because you were in extreme pain, but even if somebody has, constant pain like rheumatoid arthritis, you go to work, or fatigue, you go to work, you pretend everything's all right, and then you go home and crash, or there's a lot of people living like that. So
I think one of the ways that helped me was to stop pretending.
Yeah,
I started talking online about what was happening. Because I thought, if I'm going through this, there must be other people going through it. And at first I was really worried to do that because I thought that people would think I wasn't reliable. If I'm ill, then I'm not going to be reliable and they shouldn't work with me. And then I realized that actually I've always been about authenticity and honesty. And if I'm not talking about it, that goes against everything that I believe in. And so it was worth losing money over. And so that's what I started to do. And actually that helped me loads because when I was really ill, I could say, I'm not going to be able to do that masterclass that I was going to do today. I'm going to do it on Friday because today I'm really feeling ill. And people understood. As long as people know what is happening, people are okay with it. I think that we blame people a lot of the time for not understanding, but actually we're pretending that everything's fine. So how can they possibly understand?
Exactly. Like no one's a mind reader. But I don't think you'll have lost people through that. I think people will have been drawn to that because I think people do like people that are honest and genuine. Yeah. And as you say, when you do need to cancel things, and I've had to do it, even recently, I hurt my back and I had to cancel a few appointments because I was in such a huge amount of pain. And everybody comes back and they're absolutely fine because I told them exactly what had happened.
Yeah.
And people, we've all been there, haven't we?
Yeah.
So we all understand. Yeah. But you did make some changes, didn't you, after this happened?
Yeah,
as you said, and that's really helped you with your health. And that's what I love about your story. I know you've done different supplements and protocols, and I'm sure that's been helpful too. But I actually think the life changes you've made have probably made the most difference. Massively. So how did you start changing, given how driven you are and how successful you are?
I had to start thinking of success differently. So success to me always meant money, always.
Yeah, which it does to a lot of people.
Yeah, the more money I have, the more, especially when you don't come from it. When you come from poverty, success is money to you. And I had to start doing some mindset work over, well, is success really success if you're ill because of it? Is success really success if it means you have to be trolled online every day? Where's the measure of real success? And to then realize that actually success is a balancing act of what actually makes you happy. And what makes me happy is being healthy and feeling good and still being able to help people and to do the things that I do in my business. And then the next level on from that is, okay, then, so what's enough look like? Because I was on a path actually where, people had said, oh, you've made 6 figures, amazing. When are you going to make 7? And so I made 7. When are you going to make multi-7? So I did that. When are you going to write a book? Got a Sunday Times bestseller. There was always something else. And I realized that I was living for when I get to this. I'll feel successful when I get to the top of this mountain. But when you get to the top of a mountain, there's another mountain behind it that's bigger. And so I thought, well, it's always going to be like that. So actually what I need to do is come up with what does enough look like? What is enough? And whatever that enough is, that's the achievement you're going for, so that when you actually hit it, you can finally feel like you've achieved something. Because I think often as driven entrepreneurs, we don't ever feel like we've achieved anything, even when we've achieved amazing things. And so that's what I did. And I thought, right, what is enough? What does that look like? And I started working towards that, which was interesting because it meant going from 4 million a year to 1 over a period of 3 years.
Which for most people is still incredible.
Of course.
But how did you come up with that enough number? Or, how did, from a practical point of view, how did you find that number for you?
How I worked it out was, what are my living expenses? And I changed some of those living expenses. So at this moment, I'm living in a £2.3 million house. I've sold this house to live in a smaller house so that I don't have a mortgage, because that immediately takes a layer of stress away.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, that means my bills will be paid. On top of that, what do I need for things like charitable things that I want to do, investing? And on top of that, what are the luxuries that are non-negotiable? Like for me, travel. Like I don't care about fancy cars or any of those things, but travel is really important to me. And what does that number look like? And that number, because often when we're in business, we kind of go, okay, well, I want to make 7 figures or whatever. But when we actually go, well, what do you want your life to look like, and work that out, it's often far less that you need to have that life than you think you do. And mine was a lot less. And, I have a team to pay for. So I really wanted to keep the majority of the team if I could. We have half the team, but we've kept some of the team that I really wanted to be there. And so we've done all of those things to enable me to, and my team of family and friends, which made everything a little bit harder in some ways.
Yeah.
We got to this enough number and then we worked our way to it, which from the outside, people were very puzzled about, because no one ever talks about people talk about how to go from this to this. No one ever talks about if you want to go back to where you were 5 years ago.
Yeah. And I think you've been talking a lot about that recently and some of the posts that you've done. I think it's just so interesting because, as you say, you don't hear about this enough, but it is so true because a lot of us, even in my business, I'm always like, I'm doing my podcast, I'd love to write a book, all these things. And it's actually stepping back and thinking, why do I want that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. No one asks why.
No, you just think it's just the next thing, or you see somebody else doing something, or I might look at, somebody else's clinic and it just feels loads more professional than mine, or all these things. It's like, actually, my clients are all happy. I work in my way and you just feel a lot freer by doing that, don't you?
Yeah. And I think that a lot of what we do is comparisonitis to others, and it's external validation and keeping others happy. And this year especially, I decided that I no longer cared about external validation. Like, I just don't care anymore. And that took an entire layer of stress away immediately, like literally within 5 minutes of me saying, I no longer care what people think of me. I no longer care if I'm liked. I don't care. I'm going to turn up and be the leader that I want to be and the businesswoman I want to be. I'm going to do no harm if I can, but I'm not going to do things for other people to like me or not. And when you take that away, there's a lot that changes, and then you can start actually living the life you want to, getting to the point of your business that you really want to be in, because it's not about what others think about you.
Yeah, I agree. It's quite hard to get to that point. And I think a lot of people listening, and I'm guilty of this too, we're all people pleasers. We care so much what people think. Yeah. And I am sure that personality trait does lead to chronic illness in the end, because you end up giving way too much or trying to get to a certain position or do things all the time to keep people happy.
You definitely do. Even this week, I'm supposed to be speaking somewhere that's 3.5 hours away. And my breathing hasn't been great this week, but also my son is having issues. Normally what I would do and what I have done in that situation in the past is go, well, the priority here is to get to that event because I've agreed to do it. And so my son will just have to cope. My illness will just have to cope and I will get there and I will do that event. And I've realized over the years that that's not the way. Like, we put other people first all the time. And actually, me being at an event and speaking, they can probably get somebody else very easily to do that. And it's much more important that I'm here with my son, and it's much more important that I'm looking after myself. But I never used to do that. So I've definitely got better at just realizing that if I can't do something, I can't do it. And that might mean letting someone down, which I don't like doing because I don't like the thought of people thinking of me as unreliable. But that's just people pleasing, and we can't be like that.
Yeah. And you're letting other people down, but you're not letting yourself down. And actually, who is number one? It's not in a narcissistic way, like who is number one? It's you. And actually, and your son, that's the most important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but we don't think like that.
I know. So what's the magic? How have you got to that point? Have you done anything holistically, or have you tried anything in terms of, being able to think that way?
Really, I've worked with mindset coaches the whole time, and that's always really helped for me to reframe things. But if I'm honest with you, how it happened was I had a really bad time at the beginning of this year where quite a lot of the people that I had put first, including people in my own business who were friends that I'd put first before me on a number of occasions, or like I had put them on my podcast, even though I wanted someone else on the podcast because I just wanted to be nice, or, put somebody on a stage to give them a platform, even though I knew that would harm me. I was doing those things all the time. Those same people were the ones that in the flicker of a second were able to turn against me when it was popular to do so. And so that actually massively helped me. At the time, it was really hard. It was like being cancelled online. And it was really tough for a couple of weeks. But as soon as it kind of finished and I was feeling stronger, I look back now and I realised that it was one of the most profound and best things that could have happened to me, because it made me realise that just because you're going to constantly give doesn't mean that will be reciprocated when it matters. And so actually what really matters is that you do put yourself and your family first.
Yeah. And I think you're illustrating how we can go through a chronic illness, we can go through nearly being cancelled, all these things that, have at the time when you're going through it is awful, but actually look at what's happened as a result of it and look where you are now. And you seem it anyway, but how much happier are you feeling as a result of that?
The happiest I've been in business in 10 years.
Yeah. And that's so good for, everybody that's listening to hear as well. And hopefully somebody's going through that at the moment, listen to what Lisa's been able to do and think about your own situation as well. Because I will often work with clients, and as a result of working with me, they're changing their careers, they're changing their relationships, they're changing where they live. They're having all these light bulb moments going through that process of getting their health back.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the supplements, the nutrition, the meditation, all these things are important. But actually, when we make life changes that are going to be sustainable for the long term, that's when we can manage our health and manage our happiness in such a better way.
Having stuff happen to you health-wise can feel devastating at the time. But I often think it is our body telling us something. Like, when I look back now, it is your body telling you to slow down or to stop, or like, this isn't the route that you should be going on. I still believe it is that now. Like, I still believe some of the things I get now is just me listening to my body telling me what I need to hear at the time, because it's made me take different courses of action that have very clearly, when I look back, been the right ones that I wouldn't have taken if it wasn't for the health things that were going on at the time.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I'm sure
it just never feels like it at the time.
Maybe even what you're experiencing at the moment, which I'm sorry to hear you're experiencing that, but, actually traveling 3.5 hours, doing a presentation, that's all huge things. Maybe your just body isn't ready for that. There's other things going on at the minute. So.
Yeah.
So if somebody is dealing with this at the moment and they have a lot on their plate, whether they're in a career, whether they've got their own business, whether they're, a mum of 3 kids or 1 kid or looking after parents, what would you recommend in terms of how to kind of simplify their life a little bit better so that they can manage through a chronic illness?
I think normally there's one thing that you can change or prioritise that then has a knock-on effect of everything else. And I think we often don't see it when we're in it. But let's say you're juggling all of these different things and you're still trying to keep something going over here or keep someone happy over here. And it's very obvious that if you were to change that one thing, actually everything would be easier. I'd look for that thing. Because I think what we try and do is, if you're anything like me, carry on doing everything or burn everything down and do nothing and be like, I can't do any of this anymore. So that's it. I'm staying in bed. And actually, often we don't need to. We just need to, and also let's lessen the expectations on ourselves of what we can do. Like we're constantly trying to live up to our own expectations of ourselves when actually, when you're ill, you can't do that. When you're going through chronic illness, you have to cut yourself some slack a lot of the time and say, well, I can't do that today. And you can push on and it'll be like wading through treacle. Or you can give yourself some time to not and ask for help. That's something I never did. I never used to ask for help. When I was in corporate and I needed help and I was ill, I wouldn't ask for help there because I would think it would make me look not as good as I was.
I was the same.
Yeah, and in business as well. Like instead of asking my clients like, hey, I could do with your help right now. Are you okay if we just don't have our calls this month because I'm having a really rough time of it? Or asking a colleague, somebody who is a peer, whether they can help out because something's going on. We don't do it. And actually people want to help.
Yeah, I think they do. And I think, again, it's kind of a personality tendency that, a lot of people in these situations, people pleasers, don't like asking for help. I mean, something I've been told recently, I need to allow more. And I'm not quite sure 100% what that means, but just allow rest, allow help, because it just doesn't come naturally. I prefer helping, I prefer the doing. But yeah, that's such great advice. Let's just end the episode, like just talking a little bit about actually what you do and how you help people, because somebody might be listening to this and I needed your help, who is starting a business or is thinking about a change of career. And I know you help people with that. So should we talk a little bit about what you actually do?
It's changed a bit recently. So the main thing that I do now is help people over 40 who are in corporate careers transition out of that and learn business skills so that they can take the skills that they already have and turn them into a legacy business, starting a business for themselves. And a lot of that is because, if we're honest, menopause, chronic illnesses, like people can't do the work that they've been doing for the past 30 years, that they've excelled at, that they're at the top of their game at, and they're feeling like something is wrong with them when actually they just need to do something different and work on their terms. And if you have your own business, you can do that. But it's helping people do that, not online businesses or businesses.
Yeah, that's part of my story, and that's certainly, I think, what helped me with my own health is like moving out of corporates and doing something that I truly love and feel purposeful about. Yeah. And I think even just for 14 years doing something that, had its perks, but it just wasn't the right thing for me. I just feel like that was probably pretty detrimental to my health. So that's great that you help people with that. Thanks so much, Lisa. It's been amazing to have you on the podcast and sharing your experience. And I know a lot of people who are listening are going to really benefit from this.
I hope so. Thank you for having me.
And where can people find you? Because I will put that in the show notes as well. But if somebody is wanting your support, where can they find you?
The easiest way is Instagram. So at Lisa Johnson Strategist. I answer all my own Instagram messages. I don't have a team doing that. So just ask me any questions in there and I'll try and help.
Great. Oh, thanks so much, Lisa. And if anybody has any questions about today's episode, then you can pop over to my Instagram account as well, which is at the Autoimmune Nutritionist. You can also join my free group, the Autoimmune Forum. Have a fantastic rest of your week and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Thank you very much for joining me today on the Autoimmune Reset. I really hope you enjoyed the discussion, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. And if you liked it, I would hugely appreciate a review on iTunes, as it helps me understand what you like about the podcast and to help share the information with more people. I'm excited to speak to you next time, and remember, you have the power to take the reins on your health. So keep the faith and celebrate the small wins. Until next time.